Hi friends, welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah Martin with The Contoured Chemist. Today is a great day. If you have questions about Seint, I'm going to be going over the top frequently asked questions. If you are brand new and are kind of curious what the line is all about, even if you've tried it before and you didn't like it, I'm going to be going over some troubleshooting, a couple different ways to apply, and then some of the basics I hear every day, like, is it clean? Can oily skin wear it? How long do those little tins last? All of that kind of stuff. We are going to go over all of those, the ones I hear the most, the questions I hear the most. So if you want to check it out, please keep watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. All right, guys, let's get right on into it. Get my hair out of my face so that I can show you the makeup as we talk about some of the most frequently asked questions I hear as an artist. So if you are brand new or you've never heard of Seint before, Seint is a makeup brand. There are actually two types of foundation, if you will. So there's 3D foundation, and then we also have something called Demi, which is now changed a bit. So if you have watched in the past and you're like, what are you talking about? Some things have changed. So what exactly is 3D foundation, first of all, because that is the most common, that's what you see the most of. You'll see it all over social media with people putting dots and stripes all over their face and blending it around, all that jazz, okay? So it is a completely cream-based foundation system, but it is very different than traditional foundation. I always stress that so much, and I'll get into that more in a little bit, but these were designed so that you can get a highlighted and contoured look in a really quick and easy way. And that is still very true. They come in these magnetic, customizable compacts, so you can pick and choose exactly the shades you want, not have to buy anything you don't want. They're extremely travel friendly, even TSA approved. They make it really easy for you to grab and go and not have a bunch of makeup bags. Save you time so that you're not having to open and close bottles, all of those. There are a lot of different options as far as different tins that you can put in your compacts, but for the most part, it is comprised of highlight shades, which is what you can think of as like a color corrector, concealer, foundation. It's what you think about because it's naturally your skin tone colors, and it is mainly what will give you the coverage from your foundation. But then we also have contour. So contour is what gives us that contoured look, that shadow and dimension to our face, but our contours actually give coverage as well. So it makes it a little bit different than traditional contours on the market. We have bronzers, lip and cheeks, which are dual purpose creams that you can use as blush and lip colors. Illuminators, which in Seint world is kind of like what you would think of a highlighter. That is what we put on the top of our cheekbones for that glow. Powders, eyeshadows, perfumes, lip conditioners, eyeliner. The list goes on and on. There are a lot of options, which is why I'm going to be going over kind of like what you absolutely need to get started, because it can be a little bit overwhelming when you are brand new. Now, if you've been following in the last few years, I want to say, my gosh, when did it come out? 2019, 2020, maybe. Oh, I think it might have been the beginning of 2020. They released something called Demi. Okay, so there's a few Demi correctors here. They have been retermed Demi correctors. It is a completely different line in the beginning of when they first were released. There are no longer all of these shades even available, but the system was designed around color theory and filtering out excess colors on the face. It is different. Formulation is different. Consistency of these creams are drier, more like a wax, and are actually applied very differently. So you will see these on the main Seint website now, which wasn't always the case. And now use them in a combination with 3D for those that are really wanting the least amount of texture. And if you're really wanting to correct something that is much less visible than traditional makeup, Demi is your girl. So I recommend it mostly for under the eyes when you have a lot of texture like I do, or blemishes. It is a complete game changer on. No longer will you like apply makeup to a blemish and it looks all cakey and crusty like they normally do. Makeup uses color theory in a way to filter out that excess color of whatever it is you're using, and so that you're able to apply the tiniest possible amount. And when I say tiny, I'm saying you almost can't even see it going on. It is very different than 3D foundation. That being said, I do find Demi is not as easy to jump into and just learn right away. So I do recommend trying 3D first, and then you can always add a Demi corrector as you are comfortable with your 3D routine. Then it's really easy to try out Demi and incorporate it into your new makeup regimen. Okay, now that we know kind of what the basics of what 3D foundation and Demi Colour are, I'm gonna go over one of the top questions I'm always asked. I'm gonna try not to spend too much time on it because it's something that's a pet peeve of mine, not really pet peeve, a pain point, because every time I hear this question, I cringe a little. And that is because I am an organic chemist. So when somebody asks me, is the makeup clean? I have to bite my tongue a little bit, just because nowadays, I feel like it's getting worse every year. I've been an artist for 5 years, and the beauty industry and the skincare industry as a whole has gotten really out of hand when it comes to this word. The word clean in the industry, and I'm just going to be completely honest with you guys, means nothing. It is a marketing term that has purely been made up to sell product. As far as regulations go, standards, all of that, all of it is not regulated by the FDA. Any company can put the word clean on their brand and it means nothing. Okay, so when somebody says, is something clean, it has no definition because it has no regulation. Sorry if I burst your bubble. I know it is something that is just rising in the industry as a whole. It's something really difficult for me to watch from the outside perspective of being in the beauty industry now and being a chemist for so long. It pains me to no end because there's so much misinformation, and it's purely a marketing strategy called fear mongering, where they're trying to scare you into demonizing a bunch of ingredients that are not even unsafe. And as a chemist, it's really hard for me not to get angry about it because it makes safe ingredients to the point where companies won't even put those in their product anymore, because if it's on the label, they're going to lose out on sales. But the ingredient is not unsafe, and it leads to companies putting other ingredients in the place of it, say like a preservative, for example, that have been less studied and are actually more likely to cause harm, usually from something like an allergic reaction, because they haven't been studied enough and is actually more probably dangerous to more people than the initial ingredient that was removed everywhere. It's crazy to me, but it is really more and more prevalent, and it's really hard to watch. Is makeup safe? Makeup is all FDA regulated. Ingredients have to be regulated. There are certain things that have been demonized so much in the beauty industry that have been used for hundreds of years. Take petrolatum, okay? If you look at the back of our ingredients, so let's see, pop out one of the highlights, okay? There's an ingredient list, you probably can't see it on the back. There's a total of 11 things that make up our cream foundation. It's not a lot of ingredients, but the number 2 ingredient is petrolatum, okay? Petrolatum with an A, not petroleum with an O. Those are 2 completely different chemical structures, they're not related. I don't care if they're derived from the same thing, it doesn't make them the same thing chemically, structurally. their characteristics are completely different. Petrolatum has gone through a refining process. 100% pure white petrolatum is what is in the cosmetic industry, which is Vaseline. Vaseline has been used by surgeons for wound healing. It has been used for hundreds of years. There's nothing dangerous about it. And yet there is all this fear mongering that you're going to have cancer if you use Vaseline. And I find it comical to an extent because it is purely one of those things that sometimes people put, you know, petrolatum free. Like if it says something is free, people automatically assume if it says free from, then that's a dangerous chemical. And that is it. In no way, shape, or form accurate. So just a little heads up, there is nothing dangerous in our creams. When I first started, I did a lot of research. And when I say research, coming from a scientific background, that is not a Google search. That is not Wikipedia. That's not inaccurate references online that anyone can write. It is purely scientific journals that have been published, peer-reviewed, highly researched, okay? I went through every ingredient in our creams and researched them, okay? So I do have documents that I created years ago. Our formulations have not changed, and I can send those to you if you are concerned. But the only claims Seint will make are anything that is regulated. We are cruelty-free since we don't test on animals. And that is really the only free from that I like to say, because just because something is free from does not mean it is dangerous in terms of ingredients. Clean industry is that. It is an industry. It is drove by marketing and fear, because fear actually will cause people to buy a product more so than any other emotional response. Is if they think that something is dangerous, they're going to go find something that claims that they're not. But understand, any company can make those claims. They don't have to back it up in any way, shape, or form. So if it's coming from an ingredient label, all the research you've done is straight from the manufacturer's website, that with a grain of salt. That doesn't mean that everything is 100% accurate. And I know that's sad in today's society that you can't trust everything, and it makes it really hard for consumers who maybe don't have a background in chemistry like I do. So that is why I'm here to educate you guys. So if you have any questions, I am an open book. I could literally talk on the subject for probably longer than any other subject ever. Moving on. First question. Let's talk color matching, because one of the first things is people want to know if they can color match themselves, or maybe they don't want to send a picture on, they won't want to send a picture to a stranger on the internet. Totally get it. But let me explain my experience from doing the exact same thing. Okay. So I discovered Seint while scrolling, I believe, Pinterest, back in the day when I had just had my third child and I was nursing all night, and I discovered back then Mascara Beauty. Granted, I had known about it for a while. It kept selling out. I finally was like, nope, I deserve this. I'm going to splurge on myself. After having my third kid, I needed a new makeup routine. I didn't want to put on makeup. I didn't have time to put on makeup. I just wanted to feel a little bit better about myself postpartum, right? I think we've all been there. Okay, so I saw that you could send in a picture. I did not want to. I even took the picture. I never sent it to anyone. But like I said, I found it on Pinterest and I saw all kinds of charts. Now, granted, back then there wasn't even half of these colors, I don't think. But a lot has changed in 5 years. So I went off some charts that would say, okay, little redness, freckles. Oh, okay, that's me. Okay, because I got freckles, got some little redness. Back then my rosacea wasn't nearly as bad as it is now. And this is the color I ordered. Right there. Okay, This is what was recommended based on all the charts I looked at online, which I will warn you, I still see lots of charts on Pinterest. I agree with probably less than 0.5% of those charts I've seen on Pinterest because color matching is not linear. Our colors are not linear. There's not just like, some of these are about the same depth, just different undertones. There's a lot going on somebody's face that I can now see that I would have never guessed before I tried Seint. Okay, because I was used to a traditional foundation. I was used to a liquid you threw over, all over, or a powder you just threw over, all over, thinking this was the same thing. Just gonna throw on one color all over, contour, golden, okay? This color I ordered, I would not recommend for anyone with freckles, ever. Now that I really understand our colors inside and out, no, never. I don't know where these charts came from. They were made by artists, not the company. So just putting that out there. Not everything you see on the internet is true. I think we just established that. So, fast forward, I tried it. I knew the color was wrong, so I ordered some more. And I kept ordering, knowing I didn't even return it. I just kept what I had and I just kept ordering colors until I figured it out and what I thought I had found my color, because I realized it was a lot better. And I had settled on this color. Okay, so that's what I wore for years. Okay, I now wear up here. Okay, so can you color match yourself? Absolutely, you can. Will you be able to get the absolute best results? I probably rematch at least 10 people a day who have either been color matched by someone else or color matched themselves and are having issues. So even though it might be difficult to send that photo, knowing what I know now about the makeup, I honestly feel like anyone who gets the perfect colors their first time, it's by pure luck, because this makeup looks nothing like it does in the 10 when you put it on your skin. Nothing. And if it does, you're applying it wrong. It is so deceiving. So I'm going to show you. First color I ever ordered. Color I wore for years. Okay. And the two colors I now wear. Traditional makeup, you can totally swipe on your cheek, blend it in, see what blends in. Okay, I can still wear this color all over. Is it my best color? No, it does not last as long. All these other issues I'll get into in a minute. And I can get it to blend in. It doesn't look bad. If I was to do my makeup, you'd be like, that doesn't look bad. But is it my best option? Absolutely not. And it's because I have a better understanding of the differences between all these shades, the undertones. I've seen it on thousands of women, and I can now. And it took me years of learning and studying this makeup before I realized my own color was wrong. So the wrong color for years. You might say, oh, well, I've seen this artist online and she looks very similar to me, and so I bought that color. I've heard that so many times. And you might get lucky, or that artist, for one, if they're a lot younger or a lot older than you, that makes a big difference in your shades, okay? The younger you are, the lot more wiggle room. You might be able to wear 5 different colors in different combinations that we have, and it looks beautiful on you, no matter how you apply it, okay? But the older you get, the more the color matters, the difference in our skin, and just very subtle differences. So like if you look here, do you see how much darker this area is of my face? This color there will probably disappear within 2 hours, okay? And it's because there's a color difference, okay? This color disappears and shows texture there. But this color I can wear there, and then I can use this to keep it matching the rest of my face. Maybe that artist you're looking at has very even skin tone and did not have multiple shades in their face. Maybe you do and you don't even realize it. It took me years before I discovered that my nose is darker than the entire rest of my face, because it might look very subtle, but there's a big difference. This won't last, and yet if I use color correction, I can get my makeup to look flawless all day long. So there are collections online now that you can try to match up your picture to what you think of, that you think yours looks like. Try to get a good match that way. I'll be honest, some of the collections will work for a lot of people depending on how those highlight shades are applied. Some of those pictures I don't find very accurate for the colors they're matched with, but a lot of those pictures have very even skin tone, and 99% of my clients do not have perfect skin tone across their entire face to where they can wear one color and have it look flawless all over all day. But most of those that come to me and are wanting to verify their shades, it's a very simple tweak. They don't notice that they have darker points on their face. And these creams don't work like traditional foundation. It's something, unless you've seen a troubleshooting video and understand the way our makeup works, you would never even think about it if you were color matching yourself. Because normally you pick one shade, you put it all over. But our makeup doesn't wear that way. If you apply a shade too light to an area too dark, we'll have a color issue that could have easily been avoided. So, I recommend having an artist. We are literally here to provide a service to help you with your makeup until you love it. That is what we do. We are here to troubleshoot any issue you might have. And this makeup isn't like traditional makeup. You can't apply it the same way, or you probably won't like it. And in order to figure out your best way to apply it, an artist should be able to help you with that. So you can avoid a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of things that are easily avoidable by getting a proper color match and then having that artist in your back pocket to where you can message them anytime you're having issues with your makeup, and they're there to help you figure out what's wrong, give you suggestions, help you really easily fix it, which you don't get from drugstore foundation. You don't even get that from Sephora. And I promise this makeup is worth it. It gets better every time you apply it. If you just know a few simple tips and tricks, it is so worth it. My makeup looks a gazillion times better than it did 5 years ago when I loved it then. Now it's like better than I ever thought it could be. So my tips and tricks have changed. My application has changed because I'm constantly experimenting and learning new ways to apply this makeup so that I can better help you guys. All right, so it's question number 2 or 3. Yes. Question number 3, what do I need to get started? So once you've been matched, you will have the highlight shades you need. Getting a match is gonna give you, at least for me, I like to give more information than not enough. So I'm gonna give you exactly the highlight shades and contour color you need to make up your foundation. It's both highlights and contour that make up your foundation. And so once you have those colors, the rest is optional. Most people will be matched to either 2 to 3 highlight shades, okay? So this is my corrector, my main shade, and then my brightener, and then my contour color. These are bronzers, lip and cheek, setting powder, and illuminator, okay? Lip and cheek is always not optional in my opinion. You gotta add that flush of color to the cheeks and have some lip color, but there are a lot of options, okay? So there are both glossy, semi-gloss, mattes, and based on what you filled out in your color match questionnaire, I will give you my suggestions based on colors you said you were drawn to. So if you don't like options, you can always message me and be like, okay, Sarah, just pick one for me. I can do that too, but I believe this is the most fun part, okay? I love having more than one so that I can mix and match and I can layer and I can get a glowy look or a matte look. So I usually recommend getting a matte color and then a glossy to top it with. That is my favorite combination. That's what you'll see me use all the time. But the formulation, know that there's 3 different ones. I will send you all the swatches, descriptions, so that you can make the best educated guess for what you want to try, because again, the website is deceiving, not only for the highlight shades and what they're going to look like on the skin, but the lip and cheek colors can look a little bit different too, which is why I give you those swatch pictures. You will not see me swatch the highlights for purely because if you see them swatched, they don't look anything like they should on the skin. Swatching these, like I showed you here, is not helpful at all. Your highlight shades, your contour shade, at least one lip and cheek, and then your illuminator. Illuminator, I would say, if you want to leave out a color, that would be the easiest one to leave out. I would not leave out a highlight shade. Those are crucial in the way you are matched. So sometimes a person truly needs a brightener shade to keep themselves matching. It depends on your skin, your depth, your maybe issues that needed color correcting, the shade of your neck, the shade of your face. All of those things go into consideration when I'm matching somebody. There are some palettes that were specifically designed for Demi that you'll see are single levels. So they have these little bitty ones. So this is not going to hold a full face of 3D foundation. They also have this single level one, which I like to use for eyeshadows. Hold 18 eyeshadows, not 18. The 3D foundation. So know that these single level ones were originally designed for Demi Colour, and I do recommend these for eyeshadows, which is really nice. Sometimes when I'm travel, I will fill up my normal palette and then I'll just put eyeshadows in this one, and that way I can easily carry them together and have everything I need, but this will give me lots of options. So this, let me go in order. This one holds 8, so it is holds 4 across, 4 on the bottom, but it is a double level. This one, I would say the number 12, I would say I would recommend this size or the next one for newbies, because most people come back to me and wish they would have started with a larger compact. So this one holds 6 and 6, and then this one is the 18, which is the double. Okay, so you got a mirror on one side and then it holds your 9 creams. So you can use one level for eyeshadows, one level for creams, and that is a good one to kind of grow into as well. And then when you get to obsession level, the triple is my favorite for every day. This one has 3 levels. And then we also do have 2 hard cases, and this one's my favorite for every day. It's massive, and it does stand up, so you can use it on your vanity. These are the Isle Compacts. So grab your palette, your minimum foundation colors, and then my recommendation for brushes for the beginner is always these 2: blush, bronzer, detail. Okay, this will enable you to get any coverage you want. Is your best bet for a newbie, so you won't over apply. So I told you those creams look highly deceiving in the 10, and that's because they're at full opacity. If you were to apply them at full opacity, they're gonna look that color that they are in the 10, and they never should. You will have loads of issues if you apply that much makeup. Our creams are like 30 times more pigmented than traditional foundation. It takes very little. So sometimes people ask, well, how long are those little tins gonna last? Because those don't have very much product in them. I've probably been using this brightener for a year now. I kid you not, but I don't apply much brightener or it can give you texture issues. So it probably takes me 6 months to go through each one of these, which is my color corrector and my main. Contour probably lasts me a good 9 months. Bronzer, probably 9 months. Lip and cheek, a year. Granted, I use lots of different lip and cheeks, but if you have more than one color, obviously it's going to last you longer, and it depends on how much you're applying the lip during the day. Illuminator, 12 months plus, okay? Little goes a long way. They last a really long time. If you are going through your highlight shade, an entire 10 in a month or even 2, most likely you've been color matched too light. You're having to apply way too much product to get coverage. You need to be recolor matched. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to use these 2 brushes. And apply your highlight with this side, blush, bronzer with this side. This one is for contouring, and then this one is for brightening, okay? You can do everything with this, and you can easily build up coverage or get natural coverage with this side. This brush leads to you using less product. I have more people with issues by using this 3D brush than any other brush, okay? This will give more full coverage, and this end can be very difficult to use and not get a streaky finish unless you use it in just the right way. And then last but not least, the Perfector sponge. I think I need to clean my desk because I have cat hair everywhere from my 2 fur balls. Okay, the Perfector sponge. I'm asked all the time if this is needed, and in my opinion, your makeup will never, ever look it can and as good as it can without this. Especially when you're brand new and you apply too much product. This is the only way to remove excess. This is the only way to make it look like skin. This is the only way to reduce any odds of creasing. And yes, this is different than a beauty blender. This sponge is designed to pick up excess. Most sponges on the market are a lot more dense, and it's hard to describe unless you could literally feel through the screen how much softer this sponge is than most on the market. Most on the market are designed to apply a liquid, okay? They're really dense so that it doesn't absorb inside of it. This is designed to pull off excess cream. It will blend in the same way, but your beauty blender will not pull off excess like this will. So if you have tried the makeup and it's sticky or tacky, or you've been trying this dry, or you haven't prepped it just right, it won't all work the same. So before I even sat down, I had this baby, I washed it. This is all just stained. I washed it with Dawn dish soap, and I squeezed it out and shook out every last drop of water. And then I put it in my highly absorbent flour sack towel, squeezed it a few more times, and I've been letting it sit out to dry this whole time, which I've been talking too much, so now it's getting probably a little too dry, so I need to start applying. Let's go ahead and start. I'm gonna show you 2 different ways, okay? Because the number 3 question I get asked all the time, and I'm gonna compile a bunch into one question. What if I tried it before and it was too heavy, cakey, sticky, tacky, didn't give enough coverage, didn't last all day, transferred, or made my pores look huge, or just I cannot get it to look like anything like the girls on social media? Those are a lot of the things I hear on a daily basis. Every single one of those things can be a color issue. They're all things that can happen when your color is too light for the area you are applying it to. If it's heavy, that means you're having to apply way too much product. Normally you have to apply too much product because it's not giving you enough coverage. So either it's the wrong color to, say, naturally color correct that thing you're trying to cover, or it's too light for it, because too light of a color will not give very much coverage. Same thing goes with cakiness. 9 times out of 10, people are telling me they're cakey under the eyes. It's because they're applying this shade under their eye directly, and their under eye is not this color. Mine is nowhere near that color. I have to use this, then I can apply this without it looking cakey. A color too light will look cakey. Apply too heavy, it eventually will look cakey if you're applying too much product. Same thing, didn't give enough coverage. Usually you need a color corrector, 9 times out of 10. doesn't last all day. That could be two things. Too light of a color will fade and not last. Second thing, what are you applying under your makeup? Okay. The number one thing that causes our makeup not to last is silicones. I don't think I have anything around me. This is pure silicone. Using something like this that is purely silicone underneath our makeup will not work. Okay. Silicones cause your skin to be very slippery. Silicones, that's literally their entire purpose, is to give this smooth finish to the skin. But our creams cannot stick to this slippery surface. So what happens is if you apply and say your full face is just fading, like within a few hours, you're like, but then it looks like I'm not wearing anything. I promise you, check your ingredients. You have something with silicones in it and it's causing all of your makeup to just fade. This especially happens if you notice like even your contour, lip and cheek, everything is just gone. It's because you applied something to your full face. So I always recommend something literally silicone free. And it can be a little difficult, I will be honest. There's a lot of silicones. Again, it's one of those things right now. They put it in everything just because they think it feels nice. So sunscreens, primers, even our setting spray has dimethicone, which is the number one silicone you will see in everything. So if you're using our setting spray as a primer, which I know a lot of artists do, it can give you longevity issues. Try applying your makeup to bare skin and see if it wears off. If it doesn't, then you had something in your skincare that was causing your makeup not to last. You try it on bare skin and then your makeup works fine, your colors are fine. It is not a color issue, it's a skincare issue. If you try it to bare skin and your colors are still fading, it's a color issue, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Same thing happens if you're getting a lot of transfer. My makeup never transfers, ever. Granted, I don't sit here and wipe my face on my sleeve, but I have accidentally before and I have nothing on my shirt, okay? White shirts, nothing. It doesn't transfer. If it is easily coming off, again, could be both those things. It happens a lot with the color too light because you're applying it so thick, trying to get coverage. I notice, I've just seen with all of my years of troubleshooting, too light of a color also transfers really easily. Okay, pores. I feel like pores can be a video on itself, which I've done over on Instagram. Pores though, naturally, if you're wearing a color too light, so if I was trying to apply this color to this area with lots of pores, you're gonna see my pores a lot more. But if you're color correcting, using the proper shades, you'll notice it's not gonna emphasize pores that might already be there, okay? Now, will it make pores disappear? No, nothing will, not even other makeup unless it is thick and literally fills in everything. But you have to be willing to wear a very thick, heavy foundation, which is a personal preference. Our creams naturally give a dewy finish. They are creams, okay? If you don't want pores to show, you have to take away the natural light reflection that happens when light hits your skin and gives that glow. It's gonna naturally blur that area because pores is literally just the reflection of light. It makes it more visible. You can see skin's natural texture. There's nothing wrong with it, but I get where some people have maybe larger pores in certain areas of their face and they just kind of want to blur that. I'm all for the glowy finish, and I feel like every time I try to get rid of pores, then my whole face, I just look 10 years older. So again, personal preference. But the best way to do that, powder those areas. Take away the light reflection, mattify it. It's as simple as that. This Mally product is actually for pores, Evercolor Poreless Face Defender. It is 100% silicone. Again, that's all that silicones do. It almost like mattifies and takes away that skin's natural texture. I don't know if I have anything, well, it'll show. All this is pure silicone, and it will mattify that area. So if you're, say, do you see that? It's gonna take away all that light reflection. Suddenly you won't be able to see your pores. Now, this has to be done last step over your makeup, okay? If you do it under, your makeup's not gonna last an hour. Okay, but you can also just use any sort of powder to kind of take away that reflection and minimize the look of pores. And then last but not least, I've heard this one a lot lately. It doesn't look like it does on social media. And I'll be honest, that can be for a variety of reasons, depending on the video you saw, the person you saw, how many people you're watching, mostly how it was applied, okay? First of all, social media isn't always super realistic, okay? I personally know there's a lot of people on social media that use filters. Even those showing makeup are using filters. So sometimes it can be hard to compare your face to them. Also, a lot of these artists have had years of experience and trial and error and using this makeup and figuring out what works best for them. This makeup does take trial and error, and you can't expect it to look like that your first time applying it. I'll just be blatantly honest. It's most likely it's not going to happen. This is the type of makeup that looks better every time you apply it. Like I said, my makeup looks night and day different than it did 5 years ago. But I'd say the number one reason is, how are you applying it? If you're applying the finger method, which I'm going to show you in a second, and it doesn't look like on you than somebody else that did the same method, your skin might be different. There's a lot of different ways to apply this makeup. There's not one size fits all. It just does not. I know that a lot of people show it that way in order to show the ease and how quick it can be, but that is not the best method for a lot of people, especially if you have mature skin or anything that is considered what I consider a color issue. Color issues are things like rosacea, redness, hyperpigmentation, scarring, dark circles, a lot of maybe blemishes, something like that. Anything that's considered a color issue, meaning you have contrast in your face, like your entire face is not one color. If you're trying to apply one color everywhere and use this bright, accent shade underneath your eyes, it's gonna look exactly like it did in a 30-second reel. First of all, you probably aren't seeing her entire application process. And I know because I've seen some of them where they show it so easy, but it's not showing the time it took for them to blend it out or to touch up areas and all of those things. They're trying to show you the ease. It's not always that easy, especially as you're learning, okay? So I'm gonna show you 2 different ways to apply it so that you can understand there's always more than one way to apply it, okay? So on this side, I'm not even gonna use a color corrector. I'm just gonna use my main shade and my brightener, and I'm gonna contour first, and I'm gonna use my fingers that you see all over social media. So first I'm gonna contour, and I'm going to use the warmth of my finger to make sure I get enough contour color on, because again, our contour is very dry, and the number one issue I see with contour is that people applying too little or over blending it, and then they can't see it. Okay, we're gonna go right underneath that cheekbone. Stop about the corner of the eye. Okay, this is Astoria. Okay, we're gonna go around my forehead. Under the jawline. And on my nose. Now with this method, these places I'm putting the contour, I will get more of a natural coverage because that contour can only give so much coverage. You'll see on this side, I'm gonna be getting a lot more coverage, okay? So then I'm going to just go into my main color And I'm just gonna dot it on. Okay, so a lot of artists show this method to show how easy it is to just place the color and blend it out. What they don't show you is that it's hard to know exactly how much to apply. Okay, so I look like I got an okay amount. I've been using this for 5 years and I still can't accurately grab exactly how much I need on my finger and apply it. Harder to control how much you're picking up with your finger, in my opinion, than a brush. Because a brush, you can slowly be tapping in and building up more coverage, whereas your finger, you would have to go back in and apply more with a brush. It's just a different level of application. So I'm gonna use the same 2 brushes. I'm gonna pick up this blush end and I'm going to just hit the highlight portions first. Okay, I'm just kind of dabbing. Okay, if you want really natural coverage, you can buff. And it's gonna blend it in the thinnest layer possible. I'm trying to make sure I don't move it too much so that I'm getting a good amount of coverage on each area. Okay. I forgot I didn't do my accent, which a lot of people show in one layer right here, which it's hard to get to with this brush. Okay, so I more or less have my highlight blended. Now I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the contour brush and I'm gonna push this up into my hairline and pull it down to blend it into the highlight. And you can see I've got that where it frames my face. Same thing along my lower jawline, and then I'm gonna pull that down my neck. Okay, and then I've got a little bit my nose there. Okay, now let's hit the cheekbone. Okay, so first I'm going to just kind of press along that line. Again, I don't want to do this. This leads to over blending the contour, which is what I see most people do. And I'm just going to press. Flick the brush upwards to blend that contour up. Okay, so you can see the coverage difference in that level. Okay, so I line my lips real quick with the multitasker and just my same contour color. And now I'm just gonna use a little bit of that lip and cheek. Add some color to my lips and then pick up. I am going to go ahead and use the blush or the brush to apply my blush because I don't know if you saw, which I could probably try to build up a little bit more coverage on my hyperpigmentation, but I tend to not apply lip and cheek like this and then blend it because it moves the product around and you don't get as much coverage when you're moving that product. So you'll see on this side how I completely avoid that, but I'm just gonna go ahead and tap into the blush and apply that right over. And then again, I've got that side done. Okay, this side is what I do on a daily basis. This is how I get better coverage using color correction, okay? And so I mentioned before, my nose is the darkest part of my face. I've got a lot of hyperpigmentation around my eyes. My dark circles are caused by just really thin skin, so I'm really blue and purple. But I've got hyperpigmentation on this whole area, and then the rosacea runs across my face here, here, and then right here. Okay, how I tackle that is I use a color corrector. Now this shade is just one darker and has undertones that correct redness and hyperpigmentation at the same time, whereas this one is just very neutral, matches my neck well, okay? So I'm gonna just tap in, and the trick with the color corrector is using the smallest amount possible, just dark enough to match the darkest point, correct, and give you better longevity and better coverage. I just hit that, and now I'm gonna go to that contour brush, and I like to use a small end for those smaller areas near my eyes. And I'm just barely tapping in, and I'm gonna hit my entire nose here that has broken capillaries at the side. I'm gonna try to show you the difference in coverage on my nose between both of these. Okay, then I'm gonna go back, see if there's any more redness peeking out. Hyperpigmentation. And just build up coverage where needed. Using the smallest amount of highlight needed, okay? Now you can kind of tell, I'm pulling a little bit darker and warmer in certain areas of my face here, okay? So that is why I can't just use this color as my normal all over color. It's too dark, it's too warm, but I can use it in combination with that main shade to get me the best of both worlds, okay? So now I'm gonna go back into my main, this shade, and again, I'm just tapping. We never swipe, it's too much product, okay? I'm just gonna tap and then tap it over my whole face, okay? If I was too buff, I would move that coverage I just placed. I'm just barely tapping it on. With this makeup, you have to build up in small, thin layers for coverage. One thick layer will never look good. You're gonna say it's too sticky or tacky or heavy when you're trying to apply too much at once. Okay, I'm gonna switch back to that small brush again, just to kind of build up some coverage around my eye. Okay, so 2 highlights. Now I'm ready to contour. I'm gonna show you with the brush this time, because again, I color corrected in this area. I don't want it to pull red again. I don't want that hyperpigmentation to stick out again So you have to apply your contour in a way it's not going to emphasize that. So I'm going to grab my contour brush, tap in, and then I'm just going to press this on in much the same way and just keep pressing and tapping to blend. So I'm not moving that product. I'm pressing it on, blending it out. Okay, and I can, same thing. This time, press it along the hairline, press it up or push it up, and then pull it down to blend. I find it faster when you apply and blend at the same time than using my fingers and then having to go back in to blend with a brush. You can control the amount, control right where it is. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and brighten. I'm gonna use that small end of the detail brush, and I like to be pretty strategic with my brightener. So up to that contour line, where I have more hyperpigmentation or shadows naturally. And then right here, if pores are not an issue there, you can get that brightening effect without having to go all the way up to the lash line. And then you don't have to brighten the center of your face or even down here unless you're needing to stay matching your neck. So now that I've gotten that done, I'm gonna go ahead and perfect. And I'm gonna go ahead and perfect my whole face, and then I'm gonna go back and add my lip and cheek. And I do that specifically because this is gonna pull off that lip and cheek. So if you do it in one layer, sometimes you might have to go back and apply more because this is gonna pull off some. You'll notice some lip and cheeks are pretty sheer, some are more pigmented, but I like to apply exactly the amount I want. And especially when I'm applying a glowier one like this, which is a gloss, I feel like it fades way too much once I perfect it. So I'm just gonna tap this, I'm not pulling, I'm just gonna tap it across my entire face to blend. And this is gonna remove excess, make it look like skin. This is gonna make sure it doesn't look tacky, heavy, cakey. If you were to leave that and not use the perfector and then put on a lot of loose powder, you can definitely look cakey. Cakiness is caused by too much creams plus too heavy or too much powder. Okay, I like to concentrate under the eye. Make sure I don't have any creasing. And then right here, my smile lines. And then I'm done with my perfector. I'm gonna go ahead and apply lip and cheek on this side. So same way. Up along that contour line. Okay, now I can go ahead and go in with my illuminator. I like to use the perfector, swipe in and then just tap it on that highest point of the cheekbone. So it is contour, blush, illuminator. Then I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna cheat and grab my powder brush because I need to control the amount of powder I use. So I'm just gonna touch my vanilla dust and then just tap it under the eye on both sides to prevent any creasing all day. Anywhere else you might feel shiny. So I didn't even use a bronzer, but you can if you want as well. Okay, so there you go. There's two different ways to apply. This one a little bit more natural. You can tell, you can kind of see more colors coming through that I didn't really fully color correct. Knowing that, I know that they're gonna show a little bit more throughout the day, and I'm not necessarily gonna get the same wear time as I will on this side. But this is a faster application. You place, you blend, you're good in one layer. This side, I built up my coverage. I color corrected, so I had a nice even canvas, and I know my makeup's gonna stay like this all day, and I do have better coverage. I'll have better longevity as well. So it is a personal preference, but one of the best things about Seint is that you can choose how you want to apply it every day. If I wanted to get the best longevity, but really wanted my skin to show and be as natural as possible, I would do the same exact application, but I would switch my brush. I would use a brush that's going to give me a little bit more of a light hand, like the blend brush. If I wanted the same thing, but I wanted even more full coverage, again, I'd switch my brush to the buff brush. This one picks up even more product. But again, those are things that I tend to recommend once you've learned the basics with a brush like the blush and bronzer. But know that there are many ways you can customize the finish. You can maybe just color correct in certain areas or just under your eyes and really kind of customize it for your face, what you need, and what you like. Okay, so there you go. Let's talk the very last question. I probably get this one more than any of the others, and that is, can I wear it if I have oily skin, or if I like a matte finish, or in the summer, if it's hot, if you live in a humid climate, will it melt off? I feel like all of these things are related, and I'm here to tell you I have more oily skin clients than I can count. But there are some tips and tricks to knowing how to get the best finish for you. You might have to try a couple things to see what works for you, because I have learned over the years there's a difference between oily skin and really oily skin, and people's skin can vary and it can change throughout the year. And again, obviously it changes during the changing seasons and the weather. Okay, first things first, let's talk setting our makeup, okay? Creams naturally do not set, okay? Traditional liquids, so powders automatically set. Powders are just setting type formulations. Liquids also are made up as mostly water, and what happens is you put it on the skin, most of the water evaporates, and then those pigments will dry down and set, okay? Creams aren't mostly water. Again, it's a lot of petrolatum oil-based molecules, okay? They don't set. The only way to set them is by setting them with something like a powder. So my first suggestion for my oily skin girls is to apply it and then set it with a powder. And if you are truly oily, I recommend a loose powder, not necessarily just our vanilla dust powder, because our creams naturally are going to hydrate your skin far more than any other makeup you've ever used. So our creams are considered what they call occlusive agents. All that means, an occlusive, like Vaseline, if you've heard that before, occlusive sits on top of your skin and it holds in moisture. So you don't have that daily water loss that your skin normally has if you're not wearing anything, or powders and liquids, which tend to dry out your skin even more. So if you've ever heard the term slugging, when you use an occlusive agent, the top of your skincare routine at the very last step, it holds all of your skincare products in, okay? Same thing happens with our makeup every day. It holds in all of your skin's natural moisture. And you don't have that TEWL, which stands for transepidermal water loss, okay? It's a good thing. It actually will hydrate and balance your skin over time. But what that means is that there will be an adjustment phase. I find the adjustment phase is harder for those that are used to a powder foundation, which is what I was doing, because your skin was getting even more dried out. All this extra moisture your skin's not used to, your skin will have to balance. I'd say it took me 3 to 4 weeks. I'd say if you have oily skin, it can be 4 to 6 weeks. But again, everyone's skin is different and it can vary. What that means is that wearing the makeup every day, you will notice your skin will change after that time period to where you might not need a powder anymore. You might not need anything. You might not need a setting spray. I tend to just powder like I just did. I powder under my eyes always to prevent creasing, and a little bit around my nose just to kind of keep a little bit of the shine at bay. That's it. Anywhere you don't want to crease, you've got to set that makeup in place, or it will naturally move with your face as you talk and blink all day long. So know that creams don't set, know that there's adjustment phase, and getting through that adjustment phase can vary depending on your skin type, but there's some easy fixes, and it's just powders and setting sprays. I personally don't feel like the setting spray set my makeup enough. It's a personal preference. Our setting spray is designed for a dewy finish. So if you like a matte finish, this is not your friend. I feel like this setting spray is best for mature or dry skin because it is more of a hydrating formula. But I'll be honest, I have tested a lot of setting sprays. Anything by Urban Decay works amazing with our makeup, all of it. If you are oily, the De-Slick is really good. All Nighter is really good. They even have matte versions. So they have a more of a variety for, depending on your skin type. But I truly don't feel like you have to have one with this makeup either. It's a personal preference. I feel like a powder sets the makeup better than anything so that you don't crease, and it will keep oil at bay far better than a setting spray will. So you can use a combination of both, but I always recommend my oily girls try a loose powder first and using a powder puff and pressing it on their full face. And if that means you have to apply your contour and blush a little bit heavier at first, by all means try that. You also might want to stick with matte lip and cheeks if you happen to be oily in this area. I feel like most people are oily in their T-zone, not necessarily their cheeks, but just know that this type of formulation is stickier and tackier naturally, okay? So a loose powder like Laura Mercier works really well. There's a ton of powders on the market. I'd say it depends on your preference and your skin, how oily you are, how heavy of a powder you want to use. I also really like Hourglass Veil. All powders I recommend just getting translucent, which have no color. But if you want something a little bit more budget friendly, drugstore, Coty Airspun, naturally, this one is heavy, will give you a matte finish, and will really keep oil at bay all day. You just got to get past the smell. So the heavier loose powders I feel like are best for matte finish or oily skin. I recommend applying the makeup, trying a loose powder first. If that alone is not getting you through the day, I would say my next suggestion would be adding a primer. Now, if you've watched my videos before, you know I'm highly convinced you don't need a primer with this makeup in any way, shape, or form. Not for longevity, not for the way it looks. I feel like it looks better without it. In fact, it's designed so you don't need one. So avoid primers, especially anything that says pore blurring. Those are just silicone based and they will not work with this makeup. If you truly want to use something priming, I would suggest something like Good Molecules, the silicone-free priming moisturizer, or a sunscreen designed to prime for makeup at the same time. Glow Screen is my ride or die and my favorite. But again, check those ingredient labels for anything that ends in O-N-E. But some oily girls need a little bit of extra help in mattifying and keeping that oil at bay, not from coming out of their pores. This is the old packaging because I don't use it because I'm not oily, but Honest Beauty has Everything Primer in Matte. This is a priming moisturizer that will mattify your face, okay? I don't necessarily think you need it everywhere unless you are oily everywhere. Apply it where you're oily, let it soak in, and then go in with your makeup, and then use your powder. Now, if you've done both of those things and you're still having issues, that's when I'd say do all three. Prime, makeup, use a setting spray. I know I have it around here somewhere. The D-Slick, Urban Decay D-Slick setting spray, something that also helps keep oil at bay. And then locking that in with a powder. Those three things, you might during the adjustment phase have to use a little bit of the translucent vanilla dust to touch up during the day. Or we also have blotting papers now that work really well to kind of blot that excess oil. And then you can finish with that vanilla dust setting powder. And then once your skin has adjusted, you can reassess and maybe drop a step. You might not need all three things unless you just like a matte look. If you are oily and you want a matte finish, you might like to do all of those things in order to keep it that way. In the humidity and in the summer, I live in a very humid state. All I do is apply a little bit more powder and sometimes have to touch up with a powder as well. Will it melt off? No. I would say your only risk of it truly melting off is if you're using a really heavy moisturizer. Like I love our Seint cream. It's amazing, but it has silicones in it and it's a very thick moisturizer meant for overnight. If you're applying that and then going straight in with our makeup, yes, you could totally, it could feel like it's melting off because you're wearing a super thick, heavy moisturizer under it. In the summer, you don't need something like that. I always recommend if you do use a moisturizer, putting it on, wait 15 minutes for it to soak in, and then go in with your makeup. Unless you have super dry skin and you need to kind of put it on dry patches and then go straight in with your makeup. But dry skin, it's never gonna melt off. I would say oily skin has the most risk, but again, you can follow this routine and you should be good to go. If you do get a little bit more oily in the humidity and then the summer, just make sure you have a good powder to set it. And I've been using these and these work really well as well. If you're wearing the wrong shades, you will have a risk for it melting off because there's just something, and I wish I could explain it with my scientific background. Trust me, I've looked into it and the formula is the same in all the highlights, but for some reason, the makeup does not last when it's too light. It's the craziest thing. I can't explain it. It's just the nature of how our creams work. So I'm sorry, I can't talk about it scientifically. It truly bothers me that I don't understand why that would be the case, but it just is. Just know, too light causes every issue almost that you could possibly imagine with this makeup. So if you are doubting if you have the perfect colors, let me know. I'd be happy to rematch you, verify your shades, or help you troubleshoot any kind of issues you're having. But I hope that helped answer some of your top questions about Seint, 3D foundation, a little bit about Demi, even though that could be a completely different video. But any questions that I didn't cover, just drop them in the comments below. If you're needing help with your foundation or you're ready to try Seint, my color match questionnaire is in the drop box below the video. Fill that out and that tells me everything I need to know to give you the perfect match. How you like to wear your makeup, what concerns you might have, all of the things that I take into consideration to give you your perfect match, and I'd be happy to help you with that. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you.